if you have the misfortune of experiencing what I'm going to show you right now, and then you can see your traction control and ABS lights are on. Unfortunately, this is actually a common problem, and it's in particular through the 04 to 08 Grand Prix. You may get this particular message pop up whenever you start your car, and then again it could happen when you're driving, it could happen when you're turning the wheel, all sorts of different scenarios and when this is actually going to start happening. But it's always like this. Essentially, the ABS control module, which monitors the 4 wheels, has detected a problem. And the problem is that it might be a bad signal. It could be no signal, high voltage, low voltage. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that could possibly be wrong. The most common culprits are you have a bad wheel bearing. That's the first one. Or the second most common is that the wire harness that runs to the wheel bearing itself, not that's attached to the wheel bearing, but actually plugs in from the ABS control module to the wheel bearing, is actually bad. And this is actually more of a common problem than people may think. And I'll get up underneath the car and show you exactly, but in order to kind of give you a brief description, I'll say that there's some slack on this wire, and there has to be, because obviously you're turning your wheel left and right, suspension bumps and things like that, so there has to be some slack on this wire. Unfortunately, if it gets caught or snagged or whatever on something, it's always possible that it could become damaged. And in my case, I have 2 brand new front wheel bearings, and if you followed my channel at all, you'll know that I suddenly started having some problems. This particular problem came up, and I took it back to the dealership thinking that it was in fact the wheel bearings themselves that somehow, and it turns out that my passenger ABS wheel speed sensor harness is bad. It actually became disconnected internally. So the wire is broke, essentially. The harness that runs from the ABS control module to the wheel bearing sensor, the speed sensor, is actually busted. The dealer wants $350 in order to fix this, but I can fix it myself. Now, because it's so cold out, it's winter time, it's about 10 degrees out right now, I'm not going to spend the time or the money to completely replace the entire thing. I'll do that in the spring when it warms up. But to get me by temporarily, so that I still have ABS, I have traction control, stability control, I'm going to temporarily fix it. It's actually rather easy to do, and I'm going to show you exactly how we can fix this problem. Okay, so I don't think I need to go over safety issues here, but if you do plan on doing something like this, anytime you raise your car up, obviously you're going to want jack stands. I have this sitting on 2 jack stands in the front, plus I have my actual floor jack behind there. So that's to make sure that when I'm underneath the car, it's not going to fall on me. So always think safety. That is the most important thing. Now I have my wheel all the way to the left. It's giving me a little bit more room to actually get up in there and make these repairs. So that's why I did that. Okay, so here I am under the car, the passenger front wheel. And if you look right here, you can see that goes to the wheel bearing sensor, and then this right here goes to the ABS control module. It's pretty windy right now, but anyway, so I have to repair that. It's actually not going to be too difficult to do. All I'm going to do is just strip these back here, add a couple of butt connectors to get this to come back together, and then what I'm going to do is just put some heat shrink tubing over the top of it and seal it up. Now it's going to be easier if I just pull this whole thing down. The connector to the ABS wheel sensor is right there, and this knob right here. See, just like that. So this whole thing comes down. It's actually kind of a shame that it would happen like this, but unfortunately it probably just got snagged on something. Yeah, that's most likely the culprit there. So anyways, I can probably just cut this out, get this whole thing out of here like that. But you can see there, that's exactly what happened. I mean, it just came disconnected. It's a little awkward under here, but I should be able to strip these wires back right there and just add a couple of butt connectors, heat shrink it up, and I should be able to get this thing fixed up. Yeah, man, that's a real wonder how this stuff even stays together sometimes with as much abuse as these plugs take. Huh. Yep. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this end off here and start the repair. Okay, so I put down some papers here so that you guys can better see exactly what I'm doing here. But this is a pretty simple wire repair. There's really nothing to it. I'm just going to be using some of these butt connectors for this wire. Now there's two wires that actually run in this harness here that apply or supply voltage, which is how the speed sensor actually works. It just monitors voltage. So I'm going to make sure that obviously I get these two wires correct because I don't want to reverse them. So I'll probably mark one of them. Let's see, there's not very good light, but you got a brown one in there, and then you have a dark, looks like dark green in there as well. So basically I'm just taking some wire cutters. There's a outer plastic protection. It's just basically, it just holds this whole thing together. I should probably be using a box cutter for this, but it should. I get this on there right. Yeah, it's all right. Hit the camera. You can see it's pretty clogged up here with a bunch of dirt and crap. Yeah, this is a mess. So actually, you know what? I changed my mind. This is an absolute mess in here. There's so much dirt and garbage and everything in here. I'm just going to take this whole sleeve right off. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Look how dirty that is in there. I'm surprised this wire is actually still good, but yeah, it's still good. I mean, it's not brittle or hard as a rock or anything. There's just all that dirt and crud got stuck up in there. So actually, this is going to work out okay because what I'll do is I'll just put a slice of heat shrink tubing right here in this area to help with this. But this is basically garbage. This is gone. There's so much dirt and crud that has gotten in there. So this will be pretty easy. These wires are actually a lot smaller than my strippers will actually take down, but that's fine because all I have to do is carefully take the end off like so, just like that. Okay, so now I've got enough here to take the end off and bring this together like this. Here are my butt connectors, and I'll be sure to mark these before I'm finished because I want to make sure that I get the correct color when they get back on the car. I don't want to mix them up, but so basically I'm just going to take my, now I'm going to use actually some channel locks to finish this off, but this is just temporary. Do a tug test, so that's pretty solid there. Like I said, I'm going to use some channel locks to get it really tight, but this is just temporary so that I can get these on here and bring them all the way down to this point right here. And as I said before, I'll get some channel locks to bring this really down, but this is just to get it started. So there, so I went and got my larger wire cutters here. They actually have a smaller gauge to them, but I don't use these as often because they're a lot cheaper. But yeah, nice and tight tug test is good. Now this is just a temporary fix, okay? So when I repair the entire wire, it'll be done properly. This is just a temp fix, okay? This is just to get me through the winter time. I would normally solder something like this, but again, it's not something that I'm really too concerned about right now, just because it's temporary, okay? So anyway, now that the connectors are on and good, I'm going to go ahead and get the heat shrink tubing on there. But first, I'm going to mark one of the wires so I know what color goes to what color. So all I'm doing here is I'm marking the dark green wire with a black permanent marker. That's it. That's all I'm doing, so that I know which wire is which, just like that. So the dark green is black permanent marker. Now I can get my heat shrink tubing. Alright, so here's my torch. Here's some standard heat shrink tubing, nothing special, just got it at Home Depot for cheap. I'm not going to shrink it right at this particular moment because I want to be able to shrink it after I'm done, but in order for me to do this right, I'm just going to get the tubing over it like that first. That way I can easily connect it to the car, and then what I'll do is I'll slide the shrink tubing over like this, just like that, and then I will use my torch and shrink it down so that it makes a nice seal. And then I'll probably use some electrical tape and bring it nice and tight together. So this is basically all I can do inside. Now I have to do this exact same thing except underneath the car. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but shouldn't be impossible. Shouldn't take too much to do this, so let's go ahead and get outside to the car. Alright, so you can see I've got the wire stripped here. There's the green wire right here. Twist this up, make it easier to get into the side of the connector, and then I have the brown wire right here. Again, twist that. I inspected the wire on the inside here a little bit, and it looked fine, so I think this is the only break. It's too bad it took this long to figure out this problem. So anyway, now all I have to do is get the connectors and attach them, since I know that the black mark here is the green wire. Well, without the mark is the brown wire. This should be a simple, just slide them in there, get them connected. Alright, so I've made the connection, and I can go ahead and get the heat shrink tubing over the top using my torch. Alright, so heat shrink tubing, might be hard to see. Heat shrink tubing is done. I'm going to put this ridiculous, if I can see, ridiculous thing over the top of it. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see. What do you know? Nothing. Haha. That is a great sign. The wheel bearing is obviously working just fine. Whew. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's cold, but absolutely nothing. Woo. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and button everything up down there and take it for a drive around the block, and what a great feeling. It's finally fixed. Okay guys, so I've successfully repaired my wheel bearing harness. It wasn't actually too difficult. Most difficult part I had was just dealing with the cold. But if you have a nice heated garage or something, you shouldn't have any problems. But this may not solve your problem if you're having the issue that I am. I just knew ahead of time that the wheel bearing was not receiving, or the control module was not receiving a signal from the wheel bearing. So if you have this problem, inspect all of your harnesses, and you can even use a multimeter to make sure that there is an actual connection there if you wanted to get down and dirty. Otherwise, you've got a wheel bearing issue. There's of course the possibility that your ABS control module is bad. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm just going over what's the most common, which obviously the most common would be that you either have a wheel bearing that has gone bad or you have the harness that has become disconnected. So if you have any questions, let me know. Overall, it took me about a half hour to make the repair. Of course, you're going to have to use a hand jack. Make sure you're safe about it. Use jack stands, all the other stuff that I won't be responsible for if you have a car fall on top of you or you catch something on fire using your torch for heat shrink tubing, you know, whatever. So hopefully this video helps you, and if you have any questions, be sure to let me know, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care, guys.